I collapsed in the nursing home hallway where I volunteered 3 days a week. Paramedics rushed me to County General Hospital. The doctors called my son, Brian. He didn't come. Hours later, while I lay in the ER hooked to IVs with a suspected stroke, my phone buzzed. It was Instagram. My daughter-in-law, Ashley, had tagged me in a photo. The whole family at an amusement park. Brian, Ashley, and my 2 grandchildren, Emma and Tyler, all grinning. The caption read, "Family Day without the drama." I stared at the screen, tubes in my arms, alone. When I finally regained full consciousness, the doctor told me it wasn't a stroke. It had a severe panic attack triggered by exhaustion and dehydration. They wanted to keep me overnight for observation. I should have felt relieved, but lying in that hospital bed with machines beeping around me, all I felt was emptiness. My name is Georgia. I'm 67 years old, and 6 months ago, my entire world changed. My husband, Frank, passed away after 42 years of marriage. 42 years of Sunday morning pancakes, crossword puzzles on the porch, holding hands during evening walks. When he died, the house in Connecticut felt like a mausoleum. Every corner held a memory I couldn't bear to face alone. Brian called me every day during those first few weeks. He'd say, "Mom, you shouldn't be alone right now. Come to Arizona. Be close to us. You can see Emma and Tyler all the time. We'll take care of you." Ashley would get on the phone too, her voice warm and welcoming. "Georgia, we'd love to have you nearby. The kids are always asking about you. It would mean so much to all of us." So I did it. I sold the house where Id raised Brian, where Frank and I had built our life together. I sold the furniture, packed up 42 years into boxes, and left behind my garden, my book club, my neighbors who'd become family. I said goodbye to Diane, my best friend of 30 years, who cried and made me promise to call every week. I moved into a senior apartment complex in Scottsdale, just 20 minutes from Brian's house. For the first 2 months, it was everything they'd promised. Sunday dinners where I'd make my pot roast that Brian had loved since he was a boy, helping Emma with her math homework at the kitchen table, baking chocolate chip cookies with Tyler, who'd get flour all over his nose and giggle. I felt useful. I felt wanted. I felt like maybe I could build a new life here. Then things started to change. Subtly at first. A canceled Sunday dinner because something came up. A rain check on helping with homework because they had other plans. The invitations became less frequent. The visits shorter. The excuses vaguer. 3 months ago, I was at their house for what turned out to be the last Sunday dinner I'd attend. I'd brought homemade apple pie, Frank's recipe. Ashley took it from me at the door with a tight smile and said, "You're always here, Georgia." The way she said it made my stomach clench. Not grateful, not warm, just tired of me. I started giving them space. I found Sunset Grove Nursing Home and began volunteering 3 days a week. I'd read to the residents, help them write letters, sit with the ones who had no family. I told myself I was being helpful, but really, I was just trying to fill the vast emptiness of my days and give Brian and Ashley the distance they seemed to want. Now, lying in this hospital bed, I picked up my phone again. My hands shook as I opened Instagram. The post was still there. Ashley had uploaded it 4 hours ago, right around the time the ambulance was taking me to County General. The photo showed them at Splash Zone, a water park 40 minutes outside Phoenix. Brian had his arms around both kids. Ashley was laughing, her head thrown back. They all wore matching tie-dye shirts. "Family Day without the drama," the caption read. I scrolled through the comments. 63 people had liked it. Friends wrote things like, "Beautiful family," and "Making memories." "And you all look so happy." I felt sick, and it had nothing to do with the panic attack. I scrolled back through Ashley's Instagram feed. 2 months of photos. A beach trip to California, dinner at an Italian restaurant downtown, Emma's birthday party with a dozen kids, and an elaborate unicorn cake, Tyler's soccer tournament, a Saturday morning at the farmer's market, a movie night with popcorn and blankets. I wasn't in a single photo. I hadn't been invited to a single event. This wasn't an oversight. This wasn't them being busy. This was intentional. I had been erased. The realization settled over me like a cold fog. I set my phone face down on the hospital tray and stared at the ceiling tiles, counting them to keep from crying. 36 tiles. 36 squares of white foam, water-stained and fluorescent lit. A nurse came in to check my vitals, asked if I needed anything. I said no. What I needed, no one could give me. I spent that night in the hospital alone. No visitors, no calls, just the sound of my own breathing and the steady drip of the IV and the knowledge that somewhere out there, my only son was living his life as if I didn't exist. They discharged me the next afternoon with instructions to rest, stay hydrated, and follow up with my primary care doctor. The nurse wheeled me to the front entrance and helped me into an Uber. The driver made small talk about the weather. I nodded and gave one-word answers. When he dropped me off at my apartment complex, he said, "Take care of yourself, Mom." I almost laughed. That's all I had now. Myself. My apartment felt smaller than usual. 1 bedroom, 1 bath, a kitchenette, and a living room barely big enough for a couch and television. The walls were beige. Everything was beige. I'd brought a few photos from Connecticut, pictures of Brian as a boy, my wedding photo with Frank, but I hadn't hung them up yet. They were still in a box in the closet. Maybe he'd known, on some level, that this wasn't home. I spent 3 days on the couch, weak and shaken. I'd doze off in the middle of the afternoon, wake up disoriented. I'd make toast and forget to eat it. I'd start a book and read the same page 5 times without absorbing a word. My phone sat on the coffee table, silent. On the 4th day, I worked up the courage to call Brian. It went straight to voicemail. I hung up without leaving a message. I waited an hour and called again. Voicemail. I called a 3rd time that evening. Voicemail. Finally, I sent a text. "Brian, I was in the hospital. Are you okay?" He responded 2 hours later. "Sorry, Mom. Crazy week at work. Glad you're better." That was it. 7 words. No follow-up questions, no concern, no offer to visit or call. I stared at those 7 words until they blurred. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he didn't understand how serious it was. Maybe he thought I'd just had a minor issue. I texted again. "I collapsed at Sunset Grove. They thought it was a stroke." His response came faster this time. "Wow, scary. Take care of yourself." 5 more words. 12 total. That's what 42 years of motherhood had earned me. 12 words. I called Diane in Connecticut. She answered on the 2nd ring, and when she heard my voice, she knew immediately something was wrong. "Georgia, what happened?" I told her everything. The collapse, the hospital, the Instagram post, Brian's non-responses. I tried to keep my voice steady, but halfway through, I broke. I sobbed into the phone like a child. Diane was furious. "That boy needs a reality check. And that daughter-in-law of yours, she's poison. You need to confront them, Georgia. You need to tell them how hurt you are." But I couldn't. I was too hurt, too confused, too afraid that if I confronted them, they'd cut me off completely. At least now I had the pretense of a relationship, even if it was hollow. A week passed. I forced myself to return to Sunset Grove. The staff welcomed me back warmly, asked how I was feeling. I lied and said I was fine. I threw myself into my volunteer work, reading to residents, helping with activities, anything to avoid the silence of my apartment. I grew close to a woman named Helen. She was 84, sharp as a tack. With white hair she wore in a neat bun and bright blue eyes that didn't miss a thing. Her children lived in California. They never visited. She'd been at Sunset Grove for 3 years. One afternoon, I was reading her a mystery novel when she interrupted me. "Georgia, why are you really here?" I looked up, startled. "What do you mean? You're not like the other volunteers. You're running from something." I closed the book. For a moment, I considered deflecting, but Helen's gaze was too knowing. "My son," I said quietly. "I moved across the country to be close to him, and now he doesn't want me around." Helen nodded slowly. "My children don't visit. Want to know why? They're waiting for me to die so they can sell my house and split the money. I'm just an inconvenience now, a burden they're obligated to maintain from a distance. Helen, that's awful. It's honest. She reached over and patted my hand. Her skin was paper thin, spotted with age. We become invisible when we're no longer useful. That's the truth nobody wants to say out loud. Her words haunted me for days. Was that what had happened? Had I stopped being useful to Brian? To Ashley? The following Tuesday, I ran into Ashley at the grocery store. I was in the produce section, trying to decide between 2 bunches of bananas, when I heard her voice. Georgia, hi. I turned. Ashley stood there with a cart full of groceries, wearing yoga pants and a tank top, her hair in a high ponytail. She looked fit and fresh and young. I suddenly felt ancient in my loose cotton pants and oversized cardigan. Ashley. Hello, how are you? Brian mentioned you'd been under the weather. Under the weather, that's how Head described it. I felt anger spark in my chest, small but hot. I was in the hospital, I said carefully. I collapsed at Sunset Grove. They thought Id had a stroke. Ashley's eyes widened, but it seemed performative. Oh my gosh, that must have been so scary. It was. I was there overnight. Well, I'm glad you're okay now. She glanced at her watch. I'd love to chat, but I've got to get home. The kids have soccer practice in an hour. She started to push her cart past me, but something made me speak up. Ashley, did Brian tell you the doctors called him? That I needed someone? She stopped, turned back. Her expression shifted, cooled. He did mention that, yes. But you know how it is, Georgia. We've just been so busy with the kids' activities. I'm sure you understand. The dismissiveness in her voice made my breath catch. Then she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. And maybe next time, don't post about your volunteer work so much on Facebook. It makes it look like you're guilting us. I stood frozen as she walked away, her cartwheels squeaking on the linoleum. My hands gripped the shopping cart handle so hard my knuckles went white. She resented me. My own daughter-in-law resented my existence. And worse, she thought I was manipulating them for attention. I abandoned my cart in the middle of the produce section and walked out of the store. I sat in my car in the parking lot, hands shaking, unable to start the engine. A woman tapped on my window, concerned, asking if I was all right. I nodded and waved her away. But I wasn't all right. I was the furthest thing from all right. I went home and stayed in bed for 2 days. I didn't eat. I barely drank water. I just lay there, staring at the wall, replaying every interaction I'd had with Brian and Ashley over the past 6 months. Where had I gone wrong? Had I been too present? Too eager? Too needy? I got up only to use the bathroom. At one point, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. My hair was unwashed, my face pale and drawn. I looked like a ghost. Maybe that's what I was becoming, a ghost in my own life. On the 3rd day, I forced myself out of bed. I made tea and toast. I sat at my small kitchen table and opened my phone. I went through old text messages between Brian and me, reading them chronologically, looking for the exact moment things had changed. January. Love you, Mom. Can't wait for you to get here. February. The kids loved the cookies you made. You're the best. March. Sorry we can't do dinner this week. Ashley's not feeling well. April. Maybe next Sunday? I'll let you know. May. Things are just really hectic right now. Well, figure something out soon. June. Single word responses. Okay. Sure. Busy. July. Nothing. The shift was there, clear as day, and woven throughout were subtle comments from Ashley that I'd ignored at the time. Your generation was so different with boundaries. Frank really spoiled you, didn't he? Must be nice to have so much free time. She'd been pushing me away from the start, and Brian had let her. I made a decision. If they didn't want me, I wouldn't force it. I would stop texting, stop calling, stop liking their social media posts, stop reaching out entirely. I would give them exactly what they seemed to want. My absence. 2 weeks passed. Complete silence. At first, it hurt. Then it became almost peaceful. I focused on my volunteering. I took a watercolor painting class at the community center. I went to a book club meeting at the local library and met 3 women close to my age who invited me to lunch. I started building something that resembled a life. Then, late one evening, I was sitting on my small balcony watching the sunset when my phone started buzzing. Not just once, over and over. The screen lit up with notifications. Brian was calling. I let it go to voicemail. He called again immediately. I ignored it. Again. And again. My phone buzzed so violently it fell off the side table onto the concrete. I picked it up. 47 missed calls. All from Brian. And texts. Dozens of them. Mom, where are you? Mom, please answer. Mom, this is serious. Mom, I need you. Mom, please, it's an emergency. My heart hammered in my chest. Something was wrong. Something had happened to Emma or Tyler. Oh God. What if one of them was hurt? What if there'd been an accident? I called him back with shaking hands. He answered before the first ring finished. Mom! Thank God! Where have you been? Brian, what's wrong? Are the kids okay? What? Yes, they're fine. Mom, why haven't you been answering your phone? Relief flooded through me, followed quickly by confusion. I've been home. What's the emergency? Ashley's mom fell and broke her hip. She needs surgery. It's serious. Mom, we need you to watch Emma and Tyler for the next 2 weeks. Can you come right now? We're heading to the hospital and we don't have anyone else. I sat down hard on the balcony chair. The sunset blurred in front of me. That's the emergency. My voice came out flat. Yes. Mom, we're desperate. Sandra's in surgery tomorrow morning. Ashley's a wreck. We need to be there for her. Can you come? You called me 47 times because you need a babysitter. It's not like that. We need family. We need you. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet and final, like a door closing. No, Brian. I can't. Silence on the other end. What? Mom, this is serious. We need help. I was serious too when I collapsed and spent the night in the hospital alone. When did you visit me, Brian? When did you even call to check on me? That was different. You were fine. This is Ashley's mom. She needs surgery. I see. So I'm fine to ignore when I'm in the emergency room, but not fine enough to refuse babysitting duty when it's convenient for you. Mom, don't be selfish. This is family. Selfish. The word hit me like a slap. You're right, Brian. It is family. And family doesn't publicly humiliate each other on social media. Family doesn't ghost each other for weeks. Family shows up. I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. It started ringing again immediately. I declined the call. It rang again. Declined. A text popped up. Mom, you're being ridiculous. We're desperate. I blocked his number. I sat on that balcony as the sun disappeared completely and the sky turned dark purple, then black. I felt like Id jumped off a cliff, terrified and exhilarated and free all at once. The next morning, I called a real estate agent. I was moving back to Connecticut. The real estate agent, a efficient woman named Patricia, came to see my apartment that same afternoon. She walked through the space, taking notes on her tablet, nodding approvingly. Senior apartments in this complex move fast, she said. Great location, well maintained. I can have this listed by tomorrow. You'll probably have offers within a week. How soon could I close? If the buyer doesn't need financing, 30 days? Maybe less. Do it. She looked up from her tablet, surprised by my urgency. Are you sure? Moving is stressful. You might want to take some time to think about it. I've had 6 months to think about it. List it today. She did. By that evening, my apartment was online. By the next morning, I had 3 requests for showings. By the end of the week, I had 2 offers. I accepted the higher one, a cash offer from a retired couple relocating from Minnesota, closing in 3 weeks. I spent those 3 weeks in a state of controlled chaos. I called my brother Paul in Connecticut. He was overjoyed. Georgia, you're coming home. Why didn't you tell me things were so bad out there? I didn't want to admit I'd made a mistake. Moving to be close to family isn't a mistake. Your son being an ungrateful fool is the mistake. Come home, stay with Linda and me until you find a place. We've got the guest room ready. I arranged for movers. I sorted through what little I'd brought from Connecticut and packed it all into boxes. I said goodbye to the women from my book club, to the staff at the watercolor class, to Helen and the other residents at Sunset Grove. Helen hugged me tight when I told her I was leaving. Good for you, she whispered. Don't let them steal your joy. The director at Sunset Grove, a warm woman named Carmen, pulled me aside on my last day. Georgia, you've watched you care for everyone here like they're your own family. You have so much love to give. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. I cried in my car in the parking lot, overwhelmed by the kindness of near strangers who'd shown me more compassion than my own son. 3 days before the move, I was packing up my kitchen when someone pounded on my door. Not knocked, pounded. I opened it to find Ashley standing there, red-faced and furious. Behind her, Brian hovered, looking uncomfortable and exhausted. How dare you? Ashley hissed. Ashley, calm down, Brian started, but she whirled on him. No! She abandons us when we need her most, and now we find out she's leaving? Moving back to Connecticut without even telling us. I stood in the doorway, blocking them from entering. How did you find out? Emma saw it on your Facebook. She's devastated, Georgia. Your granddaughter is heartbroken. Something about the way she said it, using Emma as a weapon, made my spine straighten. Come in, I said quietly. They followed me into the apartment. Boxes were everywhere. Half my belongings already packed. Ashley looked around, her anger shifting to something like shock. You're really doing this? I am. But you moved here to be close to us. You can't just leave. You're right. I moved here for family, but you made it very clear I'm not part of yours. Ashley's mouth opened, but Brian spoke first. Mom, that's not fair. I turned to him. Really looked at him. My son, 40 years old, with my eyes and Frank's nose, starting to go gray at the temples. When had that happened? Isn't it? Brian, when was the last time you invited me to Sunday dinner? He shifted uncomfortably. We've been busy. When was the last time you called me just to talk? Work has been insane. When was the last time you thought about me at all, unless you needed something? Silence. Ashley jumped in. This is manipulation, Brian. She's trying to guilt you. No, I said calmly. I'm stating facts. I collapsed in a nursing home. I spent the night in the hospital. Nobody came. Not one of you even called to check on me. But the second you needed a babysitter, suddenly I got 47 phone calls. That's not family, Ashley. That's convenience. You're being dramatic, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. I'm being honest. And the honest truth is that you've resented me from the moment I moved here. I don't know why. Maybe you felt threatened. Maybe you thought it'd interfere, but instead of talking to me about it, you froze me out. And Brian let you... Brian's face crumpled. Mom, You're weak. Brian, the words came out harsh, but they needed to be said. Your father would be ashamed. He taught you to stand up for what's right, to protect the people you love. But you chose the easy path. You chose to keep the peace with your wife by sacrificing your mother. That's not fair, Ashley said again, but quieter now. Maybe not, but it's true. I looked at both of them. I'm leaving Arizona. I'm going back to Connecticut where I have people who actually want me around. You're welcome to visit if you ever decide I'm worth the effort, but I won't be waiting around hoping for scraps of your attention anymore. Mom, please, Brian said, and his voice broke. Don't go like this. Like what? With dignity? With self-respect. Ashley grabbed Brian's arm. Let's go. She's made her decision. But Brian didn't move. He stood there, tears streaming down his face, looking more lost than I'd ever seen him. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry, Mom. I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix this. They left. I closed the door behind them and sank to the floor, my back against it, and let myself cry. Not for what I was losing, for what I'd never really had. The next 2 days passed in a blur. I finished packing, did a final walkthrough with Patricia, signed papers. I didn't hear from Brian or Ashley. I told myself that was for the best. The morning before my flight to Connecticut, I went to Sunset Grove one last time. I wanted to say goodbye to Helen properly. I found her in the sunroom, working on a jigsaw puzzle. She looked up when I came in and smiled. Come to say goodbye. I leave tomorrow. Good. You're doing the right thing, you know. I sat down next to her, helped her fit a few pieces together. We worked in comfortable silence for a while. Helen, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you ever regret not fighting harder with your kids? Not demanding they treat you better? She was quiet for a long moment, studying the puzzle pieces. Every day. But I also know that you can't force people to love you the way you need to be loved. You can only decide what you're willing to accept. I accepted too little for too long. I let them make me small. She looked at me, her blue eyes fierce, despite her age. Don't let anyone make you small, Georgia. You're too bright for that. I hugged her. This woman I'd known for only a few months but who'd somehow become so important to me. Thank you. Go live, sweetheart. Live big and loud and full. They'll either come around or they won't, but you'll be whole either way. As I was leaving the building, Carmen caught me in the lobby. Georgia, wait. She pressed something into my hand. An envelope. Don't open it until you're on the plane. Carmen, you didn't have to. Just open it later. And Georgia, you're going to be just fine. Better than fine. I hugged her too, overwhelmed by how these people, these near strangers, had filled the gaps my own family had left. That evening, I was doing a final check of my apartment when there was a soft knock on the door. Not Ashley's aggressive pounding, something gentler. I opened it to find Emma standing there alone. My heart clenched. She was 11, all long limbs and braces, her dark hair in a messy ponytail. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying. Grandma. Emma. Sweetheart. Does your mom know you're here? She shook her head. I told her I was going to my friend Sophia's house. Sophia's mom dropped me off. She's waiting in the car. Come in. But just for a minute. She stepped inside and looked around at the boxes. Her lower lip trembled. You're really leaving? I knelt down so we were eye level. I am, honey. But why? Don't you love us anymore? The question broke my heart. Oh, Emma. I love you more than anything in this world. I love you and Tyler so much it hurts. Then why are you going? How do you explain adult complications to a child? How do you tell your granddaughter that her mother has made your life unbearable without turning her against her own parent? Sometimes grown-ups need space, I said carefully. Your mom and we see things differently, and that's caused some problems. I think it's better for everyone if I go back to Connecticut. Mom said you don't want to be part of our family anymore. The manipulation of it, the cruelty, made anger flash through me, but I kept my voice gentle. That's not true. Your mom is upset, and sometimes when people are upset, they say things that aren't quite right. Emma pulled out her phone. Grandma, I need to show you something. She opened a group chat. I saw names of people I recognized. Brian's cousins, his Aunt Marie, his Uncle Tom, my brother Paul. Mom added everyone to this chat after you wouldn't babysit, Emma explained. She scrolled up to show me messages from 2 weeks ago. Ashley had written a long message. Just want to update everyone on Georgia's situation. She's decided to isolate herself and has refused to help during a family crisis. My mother is having serious surgery, and Georgia said no. I think she needs professional help for her depression. Please keep her in your thoughts. The comments below were mixed. Some people expressing concern, sending prayers, others defending me. Brian's cousin Jennifer. That doesn't sound like Aunt Georgia at all. Have you asked her side of this? Ashley's response. We've tried. She won't talk to us. She's not in a good place mentally. But then I saw it. A long message from my brother Paul, posted just 2 days ago. I'm going to say this once. Georgia is not isolating herself. She moved to Arizona to be close to Brian and was systematically excluded and ignored. She ended up in the hospital alone. Alone. Not one of you flew out. Not one of you called her. And now Ashley is painting her as the problem? I've talked to my sister. She's hurt. She's grieving. But she's not mentally ill. She's being treated like she doesn't matter by the people who should love her most. Georgia is moving back to Connecticut to live with people who actually appreciate her. If anyone has questions, call me. But don't you dare make her the villain in this story. Below his message, the chat had exploded. Brian's Aunt Marie. Paul is right. We should have checked on Georgia. Uncle Tom. I didn't know it was this bad. Georgia, if you see this, I'm sorry. Jennifer. Ashley, this is not okay. And Brian? Brian had said nothing, not one message defending me or his wife or explaining anything, just silence. I looked at Emma through tears. Thank you for showing me this. Uncle Paul is really mad. He called Dad yesterday and yelled at him for like an hour. Did he? Yeah, Mom was crying after. And Dad's been sleeping on the couch. I pulled Emma into a hug. She wrapped her thin arms around my neck and held on tight. I don't want you to go, Grandma. I miss you. I miss you too, baby. So much. Can I call you? Can I visit? Anytime you want. I'll always answer. Always. We sat there on my floor, surrounded by boxes, holding each other, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something other than pain. I felt hope. Small and fragile, but there. After Emma left, I sat on my couch and reread Paul's message in that group chat. My little brother, still defending me after all these years. I called him. Georgia, I was just thinking about you. All packed. Paul? I saw the group chat. He sighed. That daughter-in-law of yours is a piece of work. I hope you don't mind that I said something. Mind? You defended me when my own son wouldn't. Brian's in over his head. Has going to realize what he's lost when it's too late. But that's his problem to figure out. Thank you. For everything. That's what family does, sis. Real family. That night, I barely slept. Partly from anxiety about the move, but mostly from something that felt almost like excitement. I was going home. Not to the house I'd shared with Frank, that was gone, but to Connecticut, to Paul and Linda, to Diane, to people who knew me and loved me. Moving day arrived. The movers came at 8 in the morning and loaded everything into their truck. By noon, my apartment was empty. Patricia met me there for a final walkthrough and to hand over the keys to the new owners. You're doing the right thing, she said, echoing Helen's words. Apparently, everyone could see it except Brian. I had a flight at 6 that evening. I'd planned to spend the afternoon at a coffee shop near the airport, killing time. But at 2 o'clock, there was a knock on my apartment door. I opened it. Brian stood there alone, and he looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, his hair uncombed. Had lost weight. Mom. I'm glad I caught you. How did you know I was still here? I've been checking the parking lot every few hours. Saw your rental car. I should have been angry. Instead, I just felt sad. Do you want to come in? There's no furniture, but that's okay. He stepped inside and looked around at the empty space. It's really happening. It is. He turned to me, and I saw tears in his eyes. Mom, I need to tell you something. Can we sit? We sat on the floor, our backs against the wall, like we had when he was a kid and we'd have serious talks. I've been a coward, he started, his voice breaking. A complete coward. And I've treated you horribly, Brian. No, let me say this, please. He took a shaky breath. When Dad died, I thought I needed to be strong for you, to fix everything, and when you moved out here, Ashley started making comments about how you were too dependent, how you needed to build your own life, how we couldn't be your whole world, and I thought maybe she was right. Maybe I was enabling you by letting you be so involved, so you pushed me away. I created distance. I thought it was healthy, but it wasn't healthy, Mom. It was cruel. And I didn't see it because I was so focused on keeping peace at home. Ashley has been struggling, and I've been trying to manage her moods. And somewhere in all of that, I lost sight of you. Ashley resents me. She does, and I need to tell you why. Because you deserve to know. He rubbed his face with both hands. Ashley's mom, Sandra, she's been absent most of Ashley's life. Sandra chose her career, her boyfriends, everything over her daughter. Ashley raised herself, basically, and when you moved here and wanted to be so involved, I think it triggered something in her. She saw you getting the relationship with our kids that she never had with her mom, and instead of being happy about it, she was jealous. I absorbed this. It didn't excuse Ashley's behavior, but it explained it. And you went along with it. I did. Because 3 years ago, after Tyler was born, Ashley fell into a really dark place. Postpartum depression, we thought. But it never went away. She's been struggling with clinical depression for 3 years, Mom. 3 years of her barely getting out of bed some days, of mood swings, of her feeling worthless and angry and hopeless, and I didn't know how to help her. So when she said you were too much, I believed her. I thought reducing stress would help her get better. Is she getting help now? She's in therapy. Started 3 weeks ago. On medication. The therapist asked about family dynamics, and when Ashley talked about you, the therapist said some hard things. Made her realize she's been projecting her anger at her own mother onto you. It's been a brutal few weeks. I sat with this information. Part of me wanted to forgive immediately, to comfort my son who was clearly drowning. But another part of me, the part that had spent 6 months being erased, held back. I'm glad Ashley's getting help. I really am. But Brian, that doesn't change what happened. It doesn't change how I felt lying in that hospital alone. It doesn't erase Family Day without the drama. He winced. I know. And Ashley knows. She's written you a letter. She hasn't sent it because she's ashamed. She says she doesn't deserve your forgiveness. She might be right about that. She is. We both are. He turned to look at me fully. Mom, I'm not asking you to stay. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm just asking you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. And I'm going to be in therapy too. Because clearly I've got my own issues to work through. But I need you to know that I love you. I've always loved you. I just lost my way. I felt tears sliding down my face. You broke my heart, Brian. I know. I'm so sorry. He was crying too now. I'm so sorry. We sat there on the floor of my empty apartment, both of us crying, and it felt like something was breaking open. Not healing. Not yet. But cracking open in a way that might someday let light in. Finally I spoke. I'm still leaving. I know. I need to rebuild my life. And you need to figure out yours. I know. He wiped his eyes. Will you stay in touch? Can I call you? You can call. I might not always answer. I need time, Brian. I understand. He stood up, offered me his hand, pulled me to my feet. Mom, for what it's worth, Dad would have kicked my butt for how I've treated you. I almost smiled. Yes, he would have. I miss him. Me too. He hugged me then, and I let him. It felt different than it had 6 months ago. More fragile, more uncertain, but also, somehow, more honest. I love you, Mom. I love you too. He left, and I stood in my empty apartment feeling wrung out and exhausted and strangely lighter. As I was locking the door for the last time, my phone buzzed. A text from Brian. Travel safe. Call me when you land, please. I didn't respond, but I didn't block the number again either. At the airport, waiting at my gate, I remembered Carmen's envelope. I opened it carefully. Inside was a card with a watercolor painting of a sunrise on the front. Carmen's handwriting filled the inside. Georgia, you came to Sunset Grove trying to fill a void, but what you did was fill ours. You gave our residents love and dignity. You showed up. That's who you are. Don't let anyone dim that light. The world needs people who show up. Keep showing up for yourself now. With love and admiration. Carmen and the entire Sunset Grove family. Tucked inside was a photo. Carmen must have taken it during the goodbye party. It showed me sitting with Helen, both of us laughing at something, surrounded by other residents. I looked happy. I looked like myself. I put the card in my purse, right where I could see it, a reminder that even in my darkest time, it still had something to give. It still mattered. My flight boarded. I found my seat, a window seat, and watched Phoenix disappear below me. The desert stretched out, brown and vast, and then we were above the clouds in endless blue sky. I was going home. Paul and Linda picked me up at Hartford Airport. Linda cried when she saw me, pulled me into a hug so tight I could barely breathe. Paul grabbed my bags, and we drove to their house in Westport, a beautiful old colonial with a porch and a garden and trees that were starting to turn red and gold with autumn. The guest room had fresh flowers on the nightstand, and new towels folded on the bed. Linda had made my favorite dinner, chicken parmesan with garlic bread. We sat around their kitchen table, and they asked me everything, and I told them everything. They listened, and they were angry on my behalf, and they loved me. It felt like being held after falling. I stayed with them for 2 weeks while I looked for a place of my own. Diane came over almost every day. She'd bring coffee and pastries, and we'd sit on Paul and Linda's porch and talk for hours, catching up on 6 months of life. "You're different," she said one afternoon, studying my face. "You're sad, but you're also something else." "What?" "Stronger. Like you've been through fire and came out steel." Maybe she was right. I felt different. More solid somehow. More sure of my own worth. I found a cottage 2 weeks after arriving. It was in a small town called Branford, right on the Long Island Sound. 1 bedroom, 1 bath, a kitchen with blue tiles, and a living room with a fireplace. But what sold me was the garden. A small backyard with flower beds that needed tending and a stone path and an old oak tree perfect for reading under. I signed the lease the same day I saw it. Moving in felt different than moving to Arizona had. This felt like choosing myself rather than chasing someone else's approval. I hung my photos, the ones I'd left in boxes in Scottsdale. Frank and me on our wedding day. Brian as a baby. Emma and Tyler at the beach last Christmas. I could look at them now without feeling only pain. Diane helped me join her book club, the same one I'd left when I moved to Arizona. The women welcomed me back like no time had passed. One of them, a woman named Margaret, invited me to her church's volunteer program. They ran a literacy center, teaching adults to read. I started volunteering 2 days a week. I also joined a grief support group. Turned out I needed to actually grieve Frank, something I'd been too busy running from to do properly. In that group, sitting in a circle with other widows and widowers, I finally let myself feel the full weight of losing him. I cried in front of strangers. I talked about the anger I'd been carrying, the unfairness of it all. And slowly, week by week, the weight got a little lighter. 3 months passed. Connecticut wrapped itself around me like a warm blanket. I painted my cottage's shutters blue. I planted bulbs that would bloom in spring. I adopted a cat from the shelter, a gray tabby I named Frankie. I started writing again, something I'd loved before marriage and children but had stopped doing. I wrote about loss, about motherhood, about finding yourself when you thought you'd been lost. Brian called regularly. Every Sunday at 3 o'clock. I didn't always answer, but I usually did. We talked about surface things at first. The weather, his work, my cottage. But gradually, we went deeper. He told me about therapy, about what he was learning about himself. I told him about my grief group, about rebuilding. One Sunday, he said, "Mom, I'm reading a book my therapist recommended, about adult children and aging parents. There's this whole section about how we repeat patterns from our own childhoods without realizing it. And I think I've been doing that. Dad was always so focused on work. He loved us, but he wasn't very present. And I've done the same thing. I've made work and Ashley's needs more important than relationships. More important than you. Your father loved you very much," I said. "He just didn't always know how to show it. Like father, like son, I guess. But I'm trying to change that. I'm trying to be better. That's all any of us can do." Ashley sent her letter 4 months after I left Arizona. It arrived in a cream-colored envelope with her careful handwriting on the front. I let it sit on my kitchen counter for 3 days before I opened it. The letter was 6 pages long, handwritten, with crossouts and tear stains. She apologized. She explained about her depression, about her mother, about how Shed projected all her pain onto me. She said Shed been cruel and unfair. She didn't ask for forgiveness, just said she understood if I never wanted to speak to her again. I read it twice, then I put it in a drawer. I wasn't ready to respond, and I didn't know if I ever would be. Some hurts take time, maybe forever, but I didn't throw it away either. Emma and Tyler video called me every Sunday after my call with Brian. They showed me their art projects, their science homework, their new dance moves. Tyler lost his first tooth and showed me the gap with pride. Emma made the school soccer team and texted me photos from every game. I sent them care packages, boxes filled with books I'd loved at their age, recipes written on index cards in my handwriting, small treasures I'd find at antique shops. 6 months after leaving Arizona, I was thriving. There's no other word for it. I'd published an essay in a local magazine about rebuilding life after loss. It got picked up by a bigger publication. People reached out, thanking me for putting their feelings into words. I joined an art class and discovered I was decent at watercolors. I painted my cottage, my garden, the sound at sunset. One of my paintings got selected for a community art show. I started dating. His name was Richard, a widower from my book club. We went slowly, carefully, both of us carrying our own grief. But we had coffee every Wednesday and dinner every Friday, and he made me laugh in a way I hadn't in years. I wasn't just surviving, I was living. One afternoon in early March, I was in my garden planting pansies when my phone rang. Brian. Mom, I know this is a lot to ask, but would you consider coming to visit for Thanksgiving? The kids miss you, and I miss you. Ashley's in a much better place now. We've all been doing family therapy. I know it's 8 months away, but I wanted to ask early, give you time to think about it. I sat back on my heels, dirt on my hands, sun on my face. A year ago, I would have said yes immediately, desperate for any scrap of inclusion. But now, let me think about it, Brian. I'll check my calendar. Your calendar. I have a life here. Plans, commitments. I need to see what I can move around. There was a pause, then a small laugh. Of course. You do. I'm glad, Mom. I'm really glad you have a life there. So am I. I did go to Arizona for Thanksgiving, but only for 3 days, and I stayed in a hotel. The visit was awkward at first. Ashley couldn't quite meet my eyes. The kids were overjoyed, overwhelming me with hugs. Brian tried too hard, hovering anxiously. But on the second day, something shifted. Ashley and I were alone in the kitchen while Brian took the kids to the park. She was chopping vegetables for stuffing, and I was peeling potatoes, and the silence was heavy. Finally, she spoke. I don't expect you to forgive me. Good, I said. She flinched, but nodded. I deserve that. You do. I kept peeling. But I'm working on it. Forgiveness, I mean. Not for you. For me. Because carrying anger is exhausting. And I'm tired of being tired. I was so jealous of you, she said quietly. You were everything my mother wasn't. Present, loving, eager to be involved. And instead of appreciating it, I resented it. I thought if the kids loved you too much, there wouldn't be enough love left for me. How stupid is that? Pain makes us stupid sometimes. I'm on medication now. Real medication that actually works. And therapy twice a week. And I'm starting to see how twisted my thinking was. How much I hurt you. She looked at me finally. I'm sorry, Georgia. Truly. I set down the potato peeler. I'm not ready to be close with you. Maybe I never will be. But I can be civil. I can be respectful. And maybe that's enough for now. That's more than I deserve. Probably. But it's what I'm offering. By the time I flew home, something had settled. Not forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe never. But the sharp edges of my anger had softened. I could be around them without feeling like I was being erased. I could love my grandchildren without losing myself. Back in my cottage, Frankie curled up on my lap, and I sat on my couch looking at my little life I'd built. Richard was coming over for dinner. Diane was stopping by tomorrow with fresh bread from the bakery she loved. My next grief group meeting was Wednesday. My watercolor class was Thursday. My volunteer shift at the literacy center was Friday. I had a calendar full of life. My life, built by me, for me. I opened my journal, something my grief counselor had encouraged me to keep. I'd been writing in it almost every day for 6 months. I read back through earlier entries, saw my pain documented in ink, watched myself heal in real time across pages. Then I wrote one final entry. I collapsed in a nursing home and nobody came. It was the worst thing that ever happened to me. It was also the moment I learned that I could save myself, and that was the best thing. Sometimes the people we love most will fail us. They'll disappoint us in ways that feel unforgivable. And in those moments, we have a choice. We can make ourselves smaller, twist ourselves into shapes that fit their neglect, or we can rise. We can choose ourselves. Family isn't just about blood, it's about who shows up. And if they won't show up for us, we show up for ourselves. Because we are worth showing up for. Always. I closed the journal. Outside my window, the sun was setting over the sound, turning the water pink and gold. My cottage was warm, my cat was purring, and dinner with someone who chose me was in an hour. I had collapsed alone in a hallway. And in the wreckage of that moment, I'd found something I hadn't known I'd lost. Myself. Sometimes you have to lose everything to discover you were enough all along. And that, I realized, was not just survival. That was grace. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to choose yourself over family expectations? Have you ever had to set boundaries with people you love, even when it hurt? How did you find the strength to rebuild when everything fell apart? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like. It helps others who might need to hear this message find it. Subscribe to the channel for more real stories about finding strength in the hardest moments. And share this with someone who needs a reminder that it's never too late to choose yourself. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope wherever you are in your own journey, you remember that you are worthy of love, respect, and dignity. Always. May you have the courage to show up for yourself, today and every day.